Hi guys! So I'm so sorry it's taken me so long to get this video up. It's just been crazy this last month, coming home from the hospital and just taking care of a newborn and a 7-year-old has been quite entertaining to say the least. So this video will actually be my labor and delivery video. I'm going to have a couple different videos and hopefully getting some of them done today. But here we go. I have lots of cheat notes on this one because it was just a crazy day. So, as you guys know, if you've seen my Am I in Labor video, that I actually was in labor. So April 16th, I woke up around 4 o'clock in the morning, feeling uncomfortable. Not really like contractions, or I didn't think so anyways. So just like a yucky feeling, crampiness. So I tried to go back to sleep and it just wasn't working. I started to feel like uncomfortable period pains, like, you know, every 5 minutes or so. So around 4:48, I started timing them on my iPhone. I have like a contraction timer, and they were about 5 to 7 minutes apart. Eric had gotten up for work and gotten ready. I told him about these like contractions or these pains that I was having, but told him to go to work anyways because I wasn't really sure what it was, and that I'd call him if anything changed. So I told him that if I still had them in about an hour, then I was going to call him and tell him that I was going to the hospital. So at 5:22, they were about 2 to 5 minutes apart. 5:43, I stopped timing them and decided, okay, maybe I better get up and, you know, get going. At this point, like, I was still kind of in denial that anything was going on, but I knew something was up and, you know, I knew that I needed to go get checked out, even if it wasn't labor. So, sorry, I'm feeding Riley right now, so it's kind of hard to hold my page. By this time, I had gotten up, I walked around, I had a granola bar and a glass of water, because I just thought, you know, hopefully that would calm them down if they were just Braxton Hicks or whatever. So, the hospital that I was delivering at was about an hour away, so I knew that if anything was up, that I'd have to get there sooner than later, so that I wouldn't be in too much pain to drive. And I didn't want to have to call an ambulance on the side of the road to come and pick me up if I really was in labor. So about 6 o'clock in the morning, I called labor and delivery and asked them what they thought I should do. And they said that it sounded like I was in labor, and to come in since second babies come faster and whatnot. And of course, because I was about an hour away. So by the time I got my stuff in the car and got Austin up and dressed and ready for school, Austin, by the way, was extremely excited. He was so happy when I told him that I was going to the hospital. I dropped him off at his grandma's. Oh, big burp. I dropped him off at his grandma's around 20 after 6 and started heading to the hospital. So Eric's mom was not happy with me. She's like, what do you mean you're driving to the hospital with the contractions? But I felt fine and didn't really think that I was in labor still. So, yeah, I got to the hospital. It was 20 after 7. And I checked in. They hooked me up to the monitors, and the doctor came, or I was waiting for the doctor to come in. And the nurse had confirmed my contractions were about 2 minutes apart at that point. So a doctor and the resident doctor came in. The resident doctor checked me first and said I was around 3 to 4 centimeters. And then she turned around to the doctor and gave her this like really funny look. And I thought, okay, that's weird. But the doctor then said, oh, you know, let me check you. So she said, yep, she confirmed I was 4 centimeters. And then when she like pulled her hand away, it was just covered in blood. And I was like, I don't know, this wave went over me. It wasn't that I was nervous, but I was like, holy crap, this is really it. Like, I am really in labor. So my heart started like racing. So she looked at me and said, I'm gonna be right back. I'm just gonna go grab the ultrasound machine. So, of course, I'm freaking out because, like, I can feel her moving, I can hear her heartbeat on the monitor, but I'm thinking, what in the world is going on? So she told me not to worry, that, you know, that everything was okay. So she brought the machine and put it really low down where my pubic bone is, and then up higher, like, on my stomach. And she looked at me and she's like, I'm really sorry. I thought that was a foot that I was feeling. You're gonna have to go for surgery. And I was in complete shock. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, here, do you see this? This is, you know, her legs, and here's her feet. And then she went all the way up under my right rib cage, and she's like, here's her head. So, like, I'm still in shock. I'm just like, well, can't we just turn her? Like, you know, what's, you know. But she said that with the type of breech that she was, there was no other option. I was going in for surgery, and I was going in now. So at this point, I was still alone. Eric was still at work. I'd called him and told him that I was in labor, so he knew I was in labor, but I told him not to rush. You know, it could be a while. And so I call him crying. I was bawling my eyes out. The doctor kept trying to calm me down, you know, it's okay, it's okay. She's like, I'm gonna give you a few minutes. I'm like, no, just tell me what's gonna happen now. So I asked her how long that I had, and she said at the moment somebody was already in the OR, so I was in next. So they really didn't give me a whole lot of time from 20 after 7 from being there, and then it was around 8:30 when the doctor actually came in and checked me, and when she told me that I was going in for surgery. So I couldn't stop crying. Obviously, my 37-week update, I told you guys that I really wanted an all-natural, non-medicated delivery this time, and my heart was just in the pits. I just felt so awful. So oh my goodness. So yeah, I called Eric right away and let him know. The anesthesiologist came in and started asking me 1,000,001 questions. I had to sign all these release forms. Eric showed up, like halfway through, and they had his scrubs and everything all ready for him. So I had to sign a bunch of these release papers and all kinds of stuff. So, and this was not the easiest thing when, you know, I was having contractions every 2 minutes to try and answer all these questions. And you want to say hi? Say hi. Hi. And so this was not the easiest thing, having contractions, trying to answer all these questions. I just wanted to, like, punch people in the face. But while Eric changed into his scrubs, I was hooked up to the IV. Actually, I was hooked up to the IV pretty much as soon as I got there, but they were just checking everything, making sure that they were giving me the proper doses of whatever they were giving me. So they were really good at explaining things. I will say that, exactly what was going to happen in the OR, when Eric was going to be allowed to come in, all of that stuff. So who would be there, what they would be asking me, what would be going on when they were talking about in the OR. So I just kept thinking to myself, like, so much for my natural delivery. And like, I couldn't stop crying. Honestly, I cried for the entire time until I was wheeled down into surgery, pretty much. I had called my mom also because she was also an hour away. So 10 o'clock she finally showed up, and by 10 after 10 I hopped into a wheelchair and they were wheeling me down into the OR. So Eric wasn't allowed in the OR until I was all ready and prepped. So there were a ton of people in the room. The doctors, the anesthesiologist, the nurse, the NICU team, because she was only 37 weeks. And yeah, like, I went in there. The lights were extremely bright. The room was freezing cold. I wasn't sure if it was cold because they kept saying, oh my goodness, it's so hot in here. But I think I was just more in shock than anything. So I hopped up onto the operating table that was literally like this wide. I thought, oh my goodness, when I lie down on this, I'm going to fall off. So they gave me my spinal, which I didn't feel at all, probably because I was having contractions. And then they told me to lie down. So I lie down, they were strapping me to the table, they put up a big blue sheet in front of me, and they were fiddling with my IV and stuff. I could feel my legs getting really warm and heavy, and they asked me if I could feel anything, or like, oh, can you feel that? And apparently they were pinching me and I couldn't feel it. But, so they finally let Eric in when I was all strapped to the table, and they started to wash down my belly with iodine or whatever it is that they use. And the nurse asked me, you know, are you okay? Because she could see tears running down my face. Well, I was laughing so hard because with the spinal, you can feel things, but you can't feel pain. So I could feel them washing off my stomach, and they were tickling me like crazy. So the entire room was laughing hysterically at me because I'm lying there strapped to the table about to be cut open with major surgery while I'm awake, and I'm laughing. So, yeah, they just were like, you're gonna be laughing through this whole thing, aren't you? So, they started with the surgery. They told me exactly what was gonna go on, and it was crazy because they told me within 15 minutes I was gonna meet my daughter. So it was not what I had planned, and definitely not what I was prepared for. And FYI, don't ever go on YouTube before you have a baby and watch how a spinal or epidural is done and watch how a C-section is done, because that's not good when you're strapped there to the table and that video of how they do a C-section is running through your head. But I never thought I was going to have a C-section, so I really didn't see any harm in watching that when I watched it a few months ago. So they told me they were starting, and I could hear when they were breaking, they told me, you know, oh, we're going to break your water now, and I heard the puddle and, you know, the suction cups and everything else going on. And the anesthesiologist was right by my side, like, watching over top of the curtain. And just before we had gone into, like, kind of like the waiting area before I went into the operating room, I had said to Eric, you know, how much do you think the baby's going to weigh? And I asked the nurse. Eric's guess was 6'11", the nurse's guess was 6'10", and me, I was absolutely clueless. I was just hoping that it was going to be... Actually, at this point, I really didn't care how big she was going to be, but I was hoping for like a 7-pound baby. So, everyone was waiting and watching. The anesthesiologist beside me says, oh, I can see her butt. She's got such a tiny little butt. So, I just thought that was really funny. I'm like, oh my goodness. But yeah, that's how she came out. She came out butt first at 10:41 a.m. My little Riley came into the world. And when I heard her cry for the first time, it was just the most amazing experience ever. I loved that. And I couldn't wait to see her. And at the same time, I was so drugged up. As soon as they take the baby out, they like pump you full of morphine. So I'm lying there trying to stay awake. My eyes feel like they're rolling in the back of my head. And I'm like searching, trying to see over this blue curtain where my baby is, and but they had her like the bed to my right side, so I could see her from a far distance. But the nurse was dead on her guess. She was 6 pounds 10 ounces. She was 19.5 inches long, and after they checked her over and brought her over to me, Eric sat right by my side the entire time. While they stitched me up, and I got to see the baby, and they let one of my hands free so I could actually hold her, or like touch her and kiss her. So but yeah, that's basically it for the actual labor and delivery. I'll do an update of like what happened after, but it's not a very pleasant story about what happened after. We'll warn you. But yeah, so I will make another update in a few minutes. Okay, bye!